and welcome to this edition of the Angels and Destiny show. Why is this show called this, you may ask? So I'll tell you. The accepted meaning of angel is messenger, and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And of course, I do like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I'll introduce you to my wonderful guest, Natalie Rani Marie. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching this show live at a later date, as it really means a lot to both Natalie and me to connect with like-minded people. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy. And I'm a guide who helps you remember your divine presence so that you can heal your past, find your purpose, create your future, to expand your consciousness, understand your spiritual path, get clarity on your next steps, and take charge of your destiny so you can fulfill your purpose in this lifetime. Now, each episode of the show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation, or an angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Natalie Rani Marie, about weaving life with spirit, the ancestors, and the other world. Now, Natalie is passionate about holding space for transformative healing, helping people reconnect with spirit, continuing to learn, teaching others tools and knowledge to support themselves, and giving gratitude for the gift of life. Over the past 20 years, she has learned a lot about the healing arts from healers and teachers from different lineages around the world, whilst working in the corporate world, gaining a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in transpersonal psychology. Now, this has led her to different Indigenous and spiritual teachers who taught her the importance of remembering our connection to all life and opened her eyes to the medicine that she carries. They encouraged her to take a less traditional route, and thus, Tending Your Spirit was born. Through Tending Your Spirit, Natalie has supported people reclaiming their sovereignty, finding their voice, navigating conflict, learning about daily energy clearing practices, learning deeper lessons about discernment, and she continues to hold space for individual and group healing work, utilizing all the tools she carries in her medicine bag. Now, Natalie loves to continue learning and studying the many different ways we can heal and remember who we truly are. She relates to sessions with the clients as their own sacred healing ceremonies and creates a safe ritual container for each session. Natalie sees healing as a way for all of us to clear out the density that trauma creates in our beings and rediscover the true essence of our souls by reconnecting with our hearts and bravely living from that space. She believes in the power of healing both individually and in community. She loves to hold space for the shadow aspects of ourselves that most people tend to turn away from. She knows how powerful it can be when we go through the darkness to discover the light within. Now, with testimonials such as Natalie creates a welcoming, safe space with so much wisdom, patience, and depth. She holds space for questions, concerns, grief, and release, making you feel safe. Natalie's a profound healer doing this work for many lifetimes. If you are seeking a person in a safe space during your journey of self and ancestor healing, Natalie is who you are seeking. If I could describe Natalie's energy in a visceral analogy, I would say she has the roots of an old growth tree upon a cliff, rooted and grounded while keeping watch in the most loving, gentle, and honouring ways. So, without further delay, hello, Natalie, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I didn't know you were going to read the testimonials, and that was so lovely to like hear those beautiful words that people have um, written to me and expressing their gratitude. And I particularly like that last one, the
I
imagery of
know.
the of the old growth tree and the cliff. I'm like, yeah, that feels right.
I like that. I thought when I was looking through your testimonies, I thought, oh my God, I've got to get that one in there. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Natalie and I want to be part of this conversation. So please don't be shy. And Tanita has already said, hi, ladies. Hi, Tanita. Thank you for joining us here today. So, Natalie, why don't you tell us more about your journey, the different spiritual teachers you have and do work with, and how we can weave a life with spirit, the ancestors, and the other world?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey is quite a long one. So I'm going to cut out the beginning part of it and go right into the depths of it. I am attempting to write a book to fill in the full length of it. It's taking some time to complete
Wow.
that, but what I will say is when I was working in that corporate job that you mentioned when you were reading part of my bio, I was doing everything that I was told to do. I went to school, I got my degree, got a job. Like that's the programming that we're taught to do. You go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a degree, go get a job, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And was I don't want to say happily following along, but I was following along like a good little girl. and I just realized, over quite a few years working there, I looked around and I was just seeing everyone around me. They just didn't look fully happy, or like their light wasn't like brilliant. And there was something, not to say they weren't happy. I don't want to project my own like thoughts on what their experience was, but I had this feeling in my body that I wasn't quite where I was supposed to be. It took 6 years for that to like really sink. It's like, Natalie, wake up. I feel like my guides and guardians were like, I needed to go there. That I'm not saying that getting a job after school and all those things that I experienced weren't what I was supposed to do. I did need to go through those experiences, but there was just a time about year 4 that I realized like there was just like this nudging, like, hey, it's time to like go to the next path. And I was listening to that. I was trying to figure out, well, what does that next path look like? I was working in a pharmaceutical company. That's a hard word to say sometimes.
That is.
In the legal department with, patent attorneys who are really brilliant people. And the people I was working with, they were amazing. Like they are amazing souls. And I'm so happy that that was the experience I got to have at, in my early 20s. And regardless of that, I still knew like I needed to find where that path was leading, where spirit was guiding me. And, at that time I wasn't as spiritually awakened. I feel that's a really funny term. I have like talking about those things, like spirit things. It's using the English language feels like it's like doesn't quite. It feels funny. It's just gonna say it that way. But I didn't fully. I wasn't in the remembering part, which I feel like when we talk about spiritual awakening, it's not like I feel like we're remembering who we are, like the essence of who we are. Not that we're like attaining some thing or it's like a hierarchical thing. I don't think it's anything like that. I just feel it's like actually coming back home to who we are and why we're here. Because I do believe that we all we chose to incarnate for a reason.
Totally.
And yeah, and that's part of like the greater story of what's weaving, what we're all weaving together with life. And so, something, luckily I didn't forget this part of listening to that that message, that voice that was inside me that's like, hey, it's time to move. It's time to go in a new direction. And so, I thought it was, going to get occupational therapy to go get my master's in that. That's what I thought it was for a while. And nope, that's not it. And then I had an opportunity through that company to travel to the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota in 2013 as an ambassador for this partnership that we had with them. And, I was excited about that experience, but I didn't really think of like, oh, this is going to be, I didn't have any like expectations of what was going to happen. And it wasn't until, I had this experience, which, when I spoke to you earlier, I was telling you about this, but I had this experience being in, one of the elders had invited us to her home, and her grandson was one of the medicine men in the tribe. And someone had asked him like, oh, how do you become a medicine man? And he was sharing, I don't really, to be honest, I don't remember what he was sharing, but he was just sharing his story, his experience. And I didn't realize at the time, but I kind of went into a trance state as he was speaking. And I feel like at that moment that the ancestors and the spirits were talking to me, and like, it almost felt like rearranging some things within me. I didn't realize this. At the time I was aware of energy work and all that stuff. I'd known about energy work since I was, young kid, but I didn't realize that what was happening in that moment was that
Yeah.
that was occurring. I just thought I was sitting on the floor listening to this man speak. Fast forward, a few months in October, and then I realized I had this epiphany of like, oh, I need to find the ways where spirituality and psychology meet. Like there has to be a way. There's somewhere that they have to teach that. And I wasn't thinking of spirituality as like religions. I was thinking of like spirit, like that greater, like creator, that you know, that force that
Yeah.
guides all of life. Even though I didn't have like the words for that at that time. And then that led me to going into the Bay Area in San Francisco and applying for school there and getting accepted and moving there. And something that I didn't expect when I was going to be I thought I was just going to go get my master's. I didn't realize this whole other world was going to open to me. And I really believe it's because of that area that I was living in. Because, San Francisco is it's such a beautiful hub of polarities. There's so much that occurs there. And I haven't been there since, let's see, I guess it was 2018 was the last time I was in that area. And there's so many beautiful people that are living in that area that are working with the land in such a, magical way. And it really was like an unraveling and a rebirthing that was occurring for me. I would have these experiences. I would be learning things in school, and then I would have these experiences outside, like get introduced to plant medicine, for example. I didn't know what that was. I actually had no clue what that was at all. And I had my first experience of sitting in an ayahuasca ceremony. It was a female, all-female ceremony under the full moon. I'm pretty sure I was even on my moon time. Yeah, I definitely was on my moon time. Now the memory is coming back to me.
Uh,
And I had never, ever, ever sat with any kind of psychedelic. So my first experience was sitting with grandmother ayahuasca, and it um I don't mean to say this pun, but it blew my mind. It really did, and it broke open my heart in a way that I couldn't have anticipated. You know, and that was just, those are, when you ask about the teachers, there were so many teachers that I was really had the blessing of being introduced to when I was living in that space. Indigenous healers that came from South America, from the Kogi people who are in Colombia, to the Quiero people in the Andes in Peru. um, Teachers who study with the Shipibo tribe and the Amazon. Just, those are just the one, like, just the people with the plant medicine. that's just one part of it. But then I got introduced to someone who, like, a very dear friend of mine, Liv Mokai Wheeler, who she said under Elder Maldomo Same, who Elder Maldomo Same is a brilliant man who he has since passed. He's an ancestor now, but he's from the Dagara people in Burkina Faso, and it was very like serendipitous, spirit led, the way that I was led to this ceremony. I didn't have any, like, a friend of mine had invited me. At the time, I was in love with him, so I was really excited about going to meet his community. And little did I know, it had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with the woman that I was about to meet in this ceremony, and that was Liv. And it was the first time sitting in this lifetime, sitting in ceremony with the Candomblé. And the Candomblé are a nation of little people, or wee folk. That's their name. That's the name for that nation of little people that is associated with the Dagara tribe in Burkina Faso. The reason why I'm like, there are a lot of different nations of little people, and that's the reason why I'm being very specific about who they are, because like there's the Menehune in Hawaii, there's the Huddle folk in Iceland, and the elves in Iceland. There's a lot of different different names that the wee folk or the little people or the elementals are called in different nations.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot since then when having that experience opened my eyes and remembering that I used to see them when I was a kid, but I just thought they were like, I don't know, my imagination, because that's what everyone was always telling me. When I would say
Yeah.
I'd see something, they'd be like, "Oh, it's your imagination." So as a child, I thought I was just imagining things. And because Disney does a good job of programming and making us think that things are make believe, and not just Disney, but all of other
Yep.
children's shows that are out there, they do a really good job, whether that's their intention or not, possibly their intention. Um, but it makes us think like, oh, these things aren't real, they're fake. You know, fairies are what you think like
Tinkerbell.
yes, thank you. I was like, what's that? I was like, I could think of Peter Pan, I can't think of her name. And let me tell you, I have since met people who are very fiercely connected with the Fae, and there are different Fae, and they are not like Tinkerbell. Not at all. No, no, don't you dare. But like these things, it's like it has been an interesting journey for me to like have these very lived experiences where like I can see or feel or um sense or like as like my third eye was opening more and more, have these experiences and be like, wait, but like the world tells me this isn't real. The
Mm.
mainstream world is like, this is not real. But like this is really real. Like, I'm it's not even just I'm seeing this, like other people are seeing this too. So it's not like, you know what I mean? And it's a very interesting unraveling. And I think for some people that can be really scary because they're like, oh, that's where, um there's a real fear that people have of like when uh what's the word I'm looking for, of like having psychosis or
Yeah.
like losing it or going crazy, or like they had the fear of um being put in like a hospital and like
Yeah.
tied down, and that's really real fears, and very likely people have like past life experience of those things happening to them, so that fear might actually be even stronger because of those
Yes.
experiences. Or so many times I've seen people who are terrified of speaking. Something that my friend Liv, she was doing, she started, I think she did interviews when I first had met her in 2016, uh, and I try to remember the name of it. It was like coming out of the spiritual closet or something like that. It was something was the name. I don't remember the exact title, but she was talking to people who were sharing their stories of coming out, like speaking about their spiritual experiences, because it's such a real fear that people have of being judged,
Yes.
crucified, um, you know, exiled, like all those different things of like, if I share this experience that's really beautiful and precious to me, like how will it be received? And very likely because maybe in their ancestral lineages that wounding exists there. Maybe they have some ancestors who were, deemed witches and were crucified because of that, or
Yeah.
maybe they had a past life, or maybe both, or maybe they were the ones who were putting people down who were doing these things. So it's been a very interesting um I feel like I'm saying this a lot. It's been a very interesting journey. Like having all of this, unpacking all of this things over the past few years. And, I'm excited for humanity that we're at this place and at this time where this is happening. Like I think if it was just a singular thing, it might have felt a little bit more um like lonesome, but I feel like more and more people are awakening at this time of like realizing, oh, there's a lot more than what we've been told.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
like there's a lot more, everything.
yeah. Oh, no, no, totally. And the beauty is as well that children are now, there's a lot more children that aren't being, told they're imagining things. Their guardians, their parents are kind of like actually accepting. Oh, okay, so you've got a friend. Okay, tell me
Mm-hmm.
more about it. Oh, so you remember that from a previous lifetime. And I think that's what's so amazing and beautiful now is that
Yeah.
more and more people are remembering, but they're also allowing children to actually speak their truth, so that they're not going to be frightened of talking about their experiences, their spirituality, their connection with the divine and the universe as they get older.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really exciting to see that, because I see it with my friends who have kids, and even my one of my cousins, her son, like since he was born, his name means dragon in another language, and he was born in the year of the dragon. So he was like, I was like, yes, all this ancestral healing work. And then I didn't mention this, like a lot of the something that I noticed that made me want to go into healing work, like to really dive deep, because I was dabbling in it for a long time until I really like, I was like, no, this is like the path. Like there's no dot. This is the path. Is that I was seeing a lot of uh, patterns in my family of, you know, trauma that was very ancestral, even though we didn't have the stories. Anytime I would ask, like I'm always asking, anyone who knows me knows that I love stories, and my parents know that I'm always asking them stories about their lives. And you know, my parents are bad, like especially my mom. My mom's a badass. Like she's gone through some things and is an amazing, amazing woman. Like I'm in awe of her. And I'm always wanting to know stories, because stories are so important. That's how we, that's the traditionally things are passed down in stories. And yes, they've been lost along the way, but I think there's so much, there can be so much treasure when we know the stories of our people. And so I would ask those questions, and even then they didn't have the answers to some of the things, but I could see the patterns of the trauma that's being expressed through not only my immediate family, but like my cousins and aunts and, you know, uncles and great uncles and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I was curious, because I realized I'm like, well, I see these patterns and I do not want to participate in this pattern. I felt very clear of that, because I was seeing the way that, excuse me, I was seeing the way that some of those patterning was being expressed in my life. And I was like, wait, hold up. Because, you know, one step with healing is once you have awareness, I always tell
Yes,
everyone,
there's no going back.
awareness is key. But once you have awareness, then you have choice. You don't have to continue in the repetition of whatever pattern is being expressed. You get to choose differently, and therefore change the pattern. And so that was something that I was realizing was like, oh, there's some patterns in this lineage that I'm not going to continue perpetuating. And so when my cousin was born, I was, it was at a time I'm like, oh, cool. I could start to see, even though some of the healing, you know, ancestral healing was, when the time he was born was still healing was being done. Not to say that it's completed, because it's not.
No.
But he was such a powerful soul who came in, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like to be like, what a blessing for us to receive this dragon into our lineage. And he's been such a funny. He's let's say, I guess he's 11 now. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm right. He's like 11, 12. And I'm like his cousin who, I'm different. I'm different from the rest of the family,
Unique.
period. Yes. And like, I'm not really sad about that. I'm okay with that. And so whenever like he comes to visit and hang, like we hang out, like I've taught him how to meditate. I taught him how to like ground his energy. You know, the last time I got to spend time with him, I got to show him how to you know, in Reiki, how you like you clear your energy. And I was showing him how to connect with his higher self and connect in the earth, and like feel the energy between his hands, and like allow for that energy to grow bigger. And it's amazing to see through this child. Like I'm the only one in his life who's like this. And so like to see how open he is to experience the world in a different place, and the wonder in his eyes of like, he's like, oh, this is real. I was like, yeah, this is real. This is a real thing. And I have like a lot of crystals and plants and stuff in my space, and so he's always like, ooh, like what's this or what's that. And I always gift him some things to take home with him. And you know, it's, I think, a gift to be able to um like love on children. I think all of us, like whether or not you have children, like it's our sacred honor to be able to gift children of the world whatever like treasures that we can gift them, as we as a humanity, like as a whole family, continue to heal like the trauma that is still being perpetuated around us. And so it's even like the smallest things, like however that looks like for you, of continuing to like take up that sacred duty. I think it's something so that we should remember to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I had a friend's daughter, and whenever sort of like she knew her mum came round to me for angelic quaking, etc. And I always gave her, because I collect feathers, surprisingly enough, when I come across them, just the right feathers.
Nice.
And I'd give her a feather to take home to her daughter because her daughter wanted something about the angels. So every time she came round, I gave her a white feather.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it's just gifting, and I sometimes, and it is the most simplest things like a white feather, or
Mm,
even your time. I think is a
hmm.
gift as well.
Yeah.
And and Harley has said hi Harley, good to see you
Hi,
here.
Harley.
So of course, everyone who's been listening, if you've got any stories or questions about ancestors or anything you want to share, then please do comment and ask. Whilst you've got Natalie here to ask, she's got such a wide knowledge of sort of like all the different healers and spirituality that she's dealt with, um, that she might just be able to answer it. Oh, no worries, Harley. Yeah, we know what technical issues can be like.
I was having
Um,
some myself today.
it's just one of those things.
Just it's all
Um,
good.
Yeah, it's all good. So how do you work with people? What do people come to you for?
Well, I work with people virtually, so actually on the computer, and also in person, some retreats and stuff that I may co-facilitate or be a part of a team, like co-facilitating. And those are completely different things, though. But when I work with people one-on-one, I'm a certified emotion code practitioner. So, for those who don't know what emotion code is, it's a particular energy healing practice where we tap into the subconscious and focus on clearing trapped emotions or trapped energy. Um, for example, someone could be wanting to focus on their depression, just as an
Mm.
example. And I ask yes or no questions. The person, they're not answering questions. They're just, I get permission first to connect energetically. And you could either muscle test or use a pen to get the answers. And it's just yes or no questions that I ask to, help. It's really about, well, the way that it feels like for me is that it's like holding space to allow for the person's subconscious to allow us to know what's ready to be cleared at the moment. And when I was introduced to Emotion Code, I knew about Reiki. I was trained in Reiki and was introduced when I was like 12 years old. So I knew about energy healing practices. When I learned about Emotion Code, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I'm curious about it. And at the time, I actually had like a, out of nowhere, really bad back pain. And the person who was like teaching this class in a retreat that I was part of, I was like, I can't move. Like, I don't know, this emotion code thing that you're teaching us about can help. Like, I could just lay on my stomach on this couch. So if you can help me, awesome. But I'm just gonna lay here anyways. And I remember she was clearing the emotions, and you use magnets and you're clearing it, and it's usually like when I'm clearing for someone, I like use a magnet to go here to clear it this way to clear the energy. But she was clearing it down my spine, and I remember having the feeling of like, I don't know if you remember those toys that had like magnets. It's like a grainy. I don't remember. Etch and Sketch is the name of the toy, but I don't know.
Yes, I
Okay, you
remember.
had Etch and Sketch. Okay,
Yeah.
so you know that like filamenty, like that stuff that Etch and
Mm.
Sketches. I felt that like getting pulled out of my back, like
Wow.
out of my spine as she was clearing, and these like emotions were like whatever emotions that were being named or getting cleared, and I was able to move my body. I went from not being able to move at all to having just a few emotions cleared. And I was like, okay, I need to learn more about this. I was like, I need to go get some training because that was very quick healing and I was in a lot of pain. And so that's when I decided to become a certified emotion code practitioner. And Dr. Bradley Nelson is the founder of Emotion Code. And so I work with people online, with emotion code. I also do coaching. When I went to get my master's, I focused a lot on Gestalt therapy. That was like the program that I was in. We learn a lot of different therapy modalities, and Gestalt therapy was the modality that spoke most to my soul. Not to be dramatic. It's just like it
Yeah,
just
you can
hit
be
right.
dramatic.
And I in my last year in school, I worked at a Gestalt focused clinic, and so that's the practice, the way that I hold space for coaching sessions is um, and holding space in that way, and also the teachings that I have from like what I call like my spiritual school that I was going through with the teachers and things about working with spirit and like that awareness of that aspect of life. I do group teachings. I do sometimes I do grief clearing, energy grief clearing work. I'm not currently holding those circles right now, but I'll do group clearing work. I'm actually having a program with my teacher, Liv Mokai Wheeler, that we're starting in July called the Cosmic Mother Culture. It's a community that we're creating. And if people are interested, when I share later of how to find me, you can sign up. We have spaces available. But I like to collaborate with people who are doing work and healing work. I do ancestral healing work with people. Through Liv, I actually learned Maladoma taught a lot of people how to do these things called ancestral vigils. And there are these very long, intense ceremonies where you gather in community and in nature, and you this like to simplify what happens. It's really hard to simplify a ceremony like that, but you're basically as community coming together, feeding the ancestors like food and drinks and song and dance and music, and you're around. There's like a sacred space that's created that's very like you stay in this space all night long, sunset to sunrise, and you're basically it's a weird word to use, but you're building spiritual energy, strong mana to help the ancestors cross over. So that's a particular type of ceremony that's created to support ancestors who are stuck, who may not have um, completely left,
Yeah.
that are in that like what Christians call purgatory, perhaps is a word that you could use. Um, you're building that energy to help support their souls. It's really beautiful and sometimes really intense ceremony. And it's something that when I was speaking to like some ceremonies that I've done in person, like ways people can work with me in person, those are some of the types of in-person things. You can't really do that with a community to that nature. Like the big energy that gets created, that it's kind of complicated to do that online.
Yeah.
I've seen it done, but not to that nature of like a big ceremony.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of my work is done that way.
Yeah, and I think that is, that is one thing that we quite often forget, is sort of like helping our ancestors and spirits actually move on. It's like if you watch some of these ghost hunting programs,
Oh yeah.
say, um, you know, the the ones that I think are the best are the ones that will help the spirits
Yes.
and the ancestors to move on,
Same.
not keep them there just because they
Yeah.
want to make money
Same.
out of people coming to be there. There are some spirits, some ancestors that want to stay
Yeah.
on this plane, but I think we should give them the choice. We shouldn't automatically assume that they want to go or they want to stay. We should be giving them the choice, to actually,
Yeah.
if they want to move on, and if we can help them, then we should do that. So I think that work you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I think more people should be coming together in groups to do that, you know, all over
Oh
the
yeah.
world, because there are so many places that have seen, you know, atrocious things that those
Yeah.
spirits, those ancestors are still trapped there because they never got a chance
Yeah.
to go. And if, you know, if we're starting working with that, then we're actually helping clear the space for people in the here and now.
Yes. Oh yes. It's how do I want to say this? It is fascinating to see uh how many people are affected by spirits who are stuck in this realm. And also I want to say too, like, at least with my ancestors, I came out that way. My ancestors, the ones who I've supported in these ceremonies, I still feel their presence, but they don't have that trauma trauma and like density that their
Yes.
energy was holding when they were stuck. And I think, like, it's probably because of the different religious beliefs that we're taught and the way that we are the way that we see the world that will limit our ability to, like, even in the afterlife, like how we think it's supposed to be. But I mean, in my experience, it has been in, you know, the ancestors who have helped transition, I very much still feel them in like
Mm,
a very beautiful way. Now it's not that, like, I don't know how to describe it more. It's just like there's just like an energy that's just like dense that doesn't it's not there anymore.
yes.
Like they feel in their embodiment of who their higher selves are. And many times, I've had this one grandfather who has caused a lot of harm when he was alive, like a lot of harm. And I remember I was with Liv. It was a big uh, retreat is a weird word too because they're not really, you're not retreating. There was a big gathering that we did in Panama um, with the group of I forget how many people, but we did it was around the ancestors. It was an ancestral training that we were doing at the time, and on this land, this beautiful land tended by this family in a beautiful, like, the island that we were on was just so well tended to. The spirits were just amazing. Like the energy was great, and you could feel like the indigenous spirits of this land, like they were really strong. And some of my ancestry comes from Colombia and Panama. They're all like, if you go back before Columbus came to this land, that was all I forget the name of that land. I think it was like Gran Colombia or something like that. But it was a big, all those people were connected before, Colombia,
Yeah.
Venezuela, Ecuador, Panama. Just if you go further back in history. So I have like a connection to that land. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, um, we did this massive, it was the biggest ancestral vigil that I've experienced in this lifetime, because we not only agreed as a group to assist our own ancestors who were stuck, but we also took on, and it's really because of the land that we were on, but we took on the mantle of um, transitioning 9 different colonizers who've caused a lot of um, suffering in the world. And I'm not going
Yeah.
to name who they are, but they were like I don't have words for them, but and there were 9 people in the group who, like, took on the mantle of, like, oh, I'm going to be responsible for transitioning this hooligan is the word I'll use. And um that grandfather, when and during that ceremony, I mean, I felt his energy like clamp down on me, and the density of like all of that. I don't believe, I'm pretty sure he was riddled with entities, to be completely, like, honest.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, him and his purity of who he was, like his soul's purity, would have done those things to others, because that's like not incoherence. Like when we're pure in our soul, we wouldn't violate other people. We wouldn't, like, violate the universal laws, right? It's when those other energies, those denser energies that get attached to us because of so many different reasons that happens, that's when those things start to happen. That's at least what resonates for me. That doesn't resonate for you. That's okay. But I had this experience of having this my grandfather's energy like clamped down on me, and I was like fierce fire, like no, absolutely not. And having that like in a ceremonial container, if a person who wasn't aware of all the different layers of what's happening, in existence, like the multi dimensionality of life, they'd be like, what is that woman doing? Like, why is she growling on all fours, like ferocious to the fire? Like, what is happening there? But, that's what I had to do to reclaim my sovereignty. I'm like, no, this is my space. This, those entities that are attached to my grandfather, you do not have my permission to take away from my life. And you don't have my permission to take away from my grandfather's life anymore, even though he's been passed for a long time. And it was such a powerful experience to feel the transformation of that energy. And like, even like I have an ancestor altar. When I look at pictures of my grandfather, that like thing that was in his eyes, it's not there anymore. And it's a photo that was taken
Yeah.
years before I was born. Like many, many years before I was born. He's a young man in this photo. But you can notice those things when you're doing that, like when you're I feel like when we're tuning into like the subtle energies, and when you're working with the energy in that way of like, okay, like there's a lot more happening here than what I'm what I'm being, and really just trusting that. And then you start to see like those transformational energies happening. Like, okay, there's some shifting that's happening here. I mean, I feel like what's happening around the world right now is indicative of that. Like, it's showing that all the things that have been coming to the light that have been in, it's not like it's just starting now. This has been happening for a very long time, far longer than we're aware of. But now more people are um, becoming aware and
Yeah.
and seeing things, and you can't deny these things that are happening. And a lot of people are reclaiming their power, and they're like, no, I don't agree to this anymore. This is not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is time for people to reclaim their power, to remember why they're here, and to be of service to the world. And yeah, everything that is happening, as long as we stay in that energy of knowing that it's all unfolding as it should be, and that
Yeah.
we are holding that space and that light for it,
Yeah.
then we've got no worries about it whatsoever, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful new earth, new energy
Mm-hmm.
that's just waiting, that's there underneath the surface, just waiting for that final
Mm-hmm.
um opening to sort of like come out and go, ha ha, I'm here.
Yeah. And trust me, Gaia is ready. She's been ready. She's called a lot of us back, like, hey, she put like the SOS, like, I need you to come back. Come back. I need you. And a lot of us were like, yes, ma'am, we're here. We have
Yeah,
returned.
we're definitely here now. So, as you know, I do guided meditations and angel oracle card readings, and each week I like to ask my guests if they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves and those watching. So, Natalie, what would you like me to do?
I would love the angel card.
That's fine. Funny enough, I have my cards here as I always do.
What a coincidence.
Yes, yes. And whilst I'm doing that, Harley has asked, have you visited the pyramids in South America, and have you picked up energy from them at all?
Well, Harley, it's funny you should mention that because Liv and I actually, I'm assuming you're meaning the pyramids in Mexico in particular. I know they just found a structure in the Amazon. I don't know if they just, but I know that they've discovered there's a um, what they think is pyramid in the Amazon. But I'm assuming that you mean Mexico. And um, Liv and I are actually planning a gathering for next year. All I can tell you that I know is that we have to the download or the message I received that is connected to the cenotes in Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula. And I know the pyramids that are there, we're supposed to be there, but we're looking for the astrological timing of it, because the vision that I saw was it was connected with the waters, but like there's a starry connection as well. So we don't have a date or anything planned. It's very much in like the gestation period of when we were going to hold this gathering. But I will be. They've been talking to me for some time, and something I didn't share with you, Ray. I have a very, very deep connection with volcanoes. It's like even those words feel very simple in saying that, and so like my soul, uh, if she were to be expressed, would be somewhere where the volcanoes meet the ocean, where new life is, or new earth is birthed there. That feels like very like resonant to my being. And so to have the cenotes, I don't know if anyone knows this, but that's the cenotes where it was where a meteor hit the earth in that area, and the impact of that created those um, tunnels and those things. And there's a lot of like volcanic activity in that area. So I wasn't surprised when I started seeing them in like these meditations I would go into, and these like trance states. I would start seeing the cenotes like a lot. I actually thought it was caves at first, and then I was like, oh no, it's cenotes. And then my Liv, she's a candomblé diviner, she's a voice diviner. So the candomblé started talking to me about the cenotes. I'm like, wait, I'm getting this like message a lot. Like now they're telling me about the cenotes. Like, okay, there's something happening here. And so to answer your question, no, I have not visited them yet, but I will be. And they have been strongly um, making their presence
Calling.
known. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And of course, volcanoes are kind of like are associated with the galactic beings as well, aren't they? That's where they
Mm-hmm.
like to they like to hang out. So, what does Natalie and everyone who's watching this need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? What does Natalie and everyone who's watching this need to know for this moment in time? And Harley says, yes, it's like a time portal has opened for others to connect and be more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And the
Mm-hmm.
card that came out was Narrow Pathway, Tread Thoughtfully,
Ooh.
which is very, very interesting. And what it's actually saying to me is that the path that you're walking on at the moment is quite a narrow one when you look in the wider picture of everything. And it's like, say, tread thoughtfully with it. And it's kind of like confirmation that you're aware that you have to be and act in integrity, to actually be aware of what you're doing, how you're doing it, so that you're not disturbing the energy that doesn't need to be disturbed at this moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, as I'm doing this work, I am aware that I need to be as thoughtful as I possibly can when doing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does a lot. Integrity is really important. Anyone who knows me knows that integrity is really important for me. And in fact, like I was doing divination work myself, and I got a very clear sign from my guides, the beings that I was working with. In fact, that like I had to put a pause and like tend to the um um like the temple space, and like to put a pause in divination work to do that, to have that space. And I think anyone who's doing spirit work, especially when you're working with higher dimensional beings, it's important to be in integrity, to know first who you're connecting with. That's an important thing,
Yes.
and to be very clear of that and discerning of like, because there's also a lot of like false light beings, and it's that's a thing. And so one must be very aware of that. And also, aware of our own like egoic um, like traps or woundings. Like it can be very easy to be like, well, I need to, do this, or people want me to do this, so I'm going to ignore what these beings, these powerful beings are telling me. And just to, if you don't have a very clear, like, no, this is what feels right, like even though it may not make sense, I'm going to follow this because it's what feels an integrity for where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when,
Yeah.
when doing this work.
Absolutely, and as a wider message for everyone that's watching this, it is a reminder, to tread thoughtfully through life, be aware of what's going on around you, you know, to actually walk that path as your own truth,
Yeah.
rather than anyone else's truth. Because your pathway is a narrow pathway with all the other pathways around you. So when you tread thoughtfully on your pathway, you will reach so many greater things by doing that. So that's a brilliant message for everyone who's watching this today. And Harley is just confirming that Mexico, Peru, etc. They found 3 in the ocean under Cuba.
Nice.
And it was a Canadian archaeological team that found the ones under Cuba. It was actually I saw something about that the other day, and it's amazing what they are now finding as we delve deeper into the oceans, into the sea.
Oh yeah.
The amazing life that is there. What was here, it's always been here. It's coming to light now, which is absolutely amazing. So yes, and Harley says very cool, Natalie. So yeah, so look forward to hearing all about that when you actually do that. That'll be absolutely amazing. So Natalie, do you have any insights or thoughts or last words of wisdom to leave our viewers?
I'd say I'm thinking of what you were when you pulled the card, the narrow pathway, and something that came to mind as you were sharing about how we all have our own narrow path. I think a lot of people oftentimes can find themselves like comparing themselves or feeling like, oh, but like look at me, like I'm not doing what this other person's doing, or compare. We can fall into the trap of like comparing our paths
Yes.
to another person's path, or like even we have an experience that's like a bad experience, thinking like, oh, I did something wrong, or I'd made a bad choice. Like that's something that people oftentimes feel. And I just want to invite people to this, like the invitation to you is to really, when you have an experience that's bad, like I've had so many experiences in my life where I even thought that like, oh, I did this thing and then, everything fell apart. Like I can't tell you how many times things have fallen apart. Like I just, now I know like something fall, okay, it's time to rebuild again. Like but things have fallen apart so many times. And it's something that about that, again, you have that choice of like, well, how am I going to be with this? Like things are going to come up for you, obviously, because no one likes to suffer. And also you get the choice of like, what am I going to learn about myself through this experience? Or, what is coming up to the surface to be healed? When you find yourself, when your wounds are getting triggered because of comparing yourself to another person's path, or you've had an experience that everything's like the floor has fallen from your feet and now you're just like in a free fall, you get to have the opportunity to meet a deeper part of yourself. And I think that when we're speaking of the narrow pathway, that's so important because it's just, I mean, I'm grateful for the hardships that I've experienced in my life, because I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for those experiences. And I feel clear about that. And yeah,
Yeah,
if you feel
beautiful.
lost or if you feel, in darkness, don't lose hope.
Beautiful, excellent words to finish on. So thank you. So I hope everyone that you've enjoyed this conversation and found insightful, because I know I definitely have. So if people want to connect with you, Natalie, what's the best way of them doing that? Where can they find you?
I have tendingyourspirit.com is the website that I have. You can find me on heal.me. It's like /tending your spirit if you want to book sessions with me. Um, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram name is Tending Your Spirit. So if you remember Tending Your Spirit, you're good. It's on Instagram, the website, heal.me. Just remember Tending Your Spirit. I also have a YouTube page that I'm not actively on. Like I'm not uploading videos actively. It's kind of just like when I get a download to make a video. But I do have stuff on YouTube. Um, yeah, those
Yeah.
are the places that you can find me.
Absolutely perfect. And what I do, what I will do, what I'll do, what I will do is I will put I will put.
Words.
I know. We were having that conversation earlier. I will put the links to the website, the YouTube, and the Instagram in the comments after the show, so that anyone who wants to can just literally click on them and go straight to them. So thank you very much, Natalie, for sharing your wisdom. And
Yeah,
of course,
thank
if you
you.
now you're welcome. So now, if you are ready to remember your divine presence, step onto your spiritual multidimensional path, but maybe you feel lost, confused, or stuck or alone, then please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free 20-minute clarity video call to see where you are now and how you can move forward to take charge of your destiny so that you can spread your wings and soar. And you can receive a free future life progression recording or a 5-day challenge to connect with your guides. If you sign up to my newsletter. And again, I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching and for joining this conversation. And Harley is even saying not only did they find the pyramids, they found artifacts too, or I need to look into more of that. Eric says,
Oh,
have a
yeah, me
great
too.
week. Thank you, Eric. So yes, thank you,
Thank you, Eric.
everyone for watching and joining in on the show. And I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more people who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified of when the show goes live or I post new guided meditations. And it's same for Natalie's YouTube channel and all our social media. Every time we post, every time that you subscribe to our channels, you share, you comment, you like, our message gets out there. The algorithm sees that, and that people are interested in what we're talking about. And the more we can actually spread this energy, this joy, this wisdom to help more and more people on their journey. It's absolutely wonderful when you can do that for us. And of course, I do look forward to you all joining me same time, same place next week. Again, thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.